Create and Craft are jetting off with the glitz and glamour of California to host an event featuring over 200 premieres, starring the big names of couture, spellbinders, plaid, tattered lace, tonic, Rafter's Companion and heartfelt creations. You won't want to miss the dazzling lineup of exclusive products and show special offers coming your way. We've got the lights, we've got the cameras. Now bring on the action. California Crafting live on Create and Craft.
Hi, I'm Sheena. First and foremost, I'm a crafter, but I'm lucky enough to find myself in the enviable position of making my passion and hobby my work. I love to share my love of crafting and showing other people how to get the most out of their arty skills without having to be an artist. You can find me, Sheena Douglas, here on Create and Craft.
The beautiful art of marbling is here on Create and Craft. Born in ancient China, the technique of floating ink is mesmerizing to work with and rewarding from the very first time you try it. Explore the possibilities and discover how easy it is to produce individual finished works of art that will surpass your expectations. Join us for live demonstrations and discover the art of marbling with Marbling for Fun.
Create and Craft can be watched on Sky, Freeview, Freesat or Virgin. But don't forget, you don't just have to view us on the television. Using your PC, your laptop, your tablet or your phone, you can log on to our website and stream live shows to make the most of our web-based demonstrations and top tips. You can also download our app onto any smartphone device and watch or buy direct from your mobile. There's no need to miss out. Let the crafting continue.
Good morning. Welcome to Create and Craft. My name's Dawn Bibby. This morning it's a treat actually for me, the Quilting Classroom. Now quilting, patchwork and quilting has become so popular. Over the last year in particular, I think we've seen a massive uplift in people having a go to create beautiful quilts for something special. They're a family heirloom. They tend to be handed down through centuries, and it's a very age-old technique as well. And I have a lady who is absolutely renowned in the industry for giving top tips and education on this. It's a lovely Jennie Rayment. Jennie, come and join me. Now,
Hello,
Jennie, how are you?
We got with the pox.
And, well, I know.
Yes,
give me a hug. Don't breathe. Happy New Year to
And
you.
you
It's
as
the first
well.
show together.
Yes,
Did you have a lovely
yes.
Christmas and New Year?
Yes, day great. Christmas night, heating went.
Oh no, is that why you've been poorly?
No heating, that's probably the grandchildren, the grandchildren's lurking. So no heating, no hot water,
Oh,
no
bless you,
nothing.
Jennie.
And now I remember why, when I was a small child, you didn't get washed very often because it was so cold. You got out of
true,
bed
yeah.
and you shot downstairs to where there was some warmth and you put all your clothes on.
Yeah, we used to have an outdoor lavvy. We used to call it outdoor toilet. Oh, it was freezing. It was cross your legs time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, you've got some exciting products for us this morning.
We have
and some
indeed.
top tips
Yeah,
again, haven't
absolutely.
you?
Yes.
Shall we dip in and have a little look, Jennie? Now then, if you want to get ahead, please do get onto the website because there's an entire lineup of products there for you. Jennie's going to give her full classroom in just a short while. First of all, we're going to take you through the products that Jennie could potentially be using. Now, you've got some lovely quilts.
These are new. These are really new. 3 different quilt kits. Okay.
Wow, I haven't seen
now,
these before.
The nice thing about that is inside is absolutely everything you need to make the quilt top, including the template and the instructions.
And the fabric, all the fabric.
Yes, the whole lot is in there. I'm going to unzip this one and just give them a quick sneaky peek of all the stuff that's in it. So you get all your fabrics, all carefully, and there is enough. I have tried one. I've made this one up.
Okay.
You get the template, which you can use again and again and again, and you get clear instructions.
I know, you said they're
I was
very
impressed
thorough.
with the instructions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got 3 colour options there. Those are
No,
absolutely
you've got 3
gorgeous.
designs.
3 different designs
Yes,
and
yes.
3 colour
Diamonds,
options. They're
you've got
totally different,
diamonds.
aren't
Turn
they?
it round, look at the front.
Yep.
There. You've got the diamonds, okay? And that is all in the blacks and the reds and makes that quilt. And that quilt, when you
Okay,
actually
we'll take
look
them
at
out,
it,
Jennie, because we can see the colours
Yeah.
of the fabrics better then, can't we? So this one, oh, quite dramatic.
I know, they're wonderful. And it makes into, let me look at the size again. How big a quilt did it make? It was a nice size, 47 by 55 inch quilt. So that's a nice big piece. It'll
Is
go on
that
top.
the actual size behind us
That's
there?
the
at
size of the one that
okay.
I made up.
Okay.
And the one that I made up was a 43 by 54 one. So
Okay.
this one is slightly bigger
bigger
than the one I made up.
Okay.
Then that one's a Dresden plate. And of course, I'm covering the Dresden plate, or part of, in the classroom today, so you get a sort of sneaky preview of how it works.
Okay.
So that's the background with all the plates put on top.
Okay, so this one we are calling, is this the no, which is this one? This is the Petal there. So you can see there how beautiful colours in there, teals and turquoises in that one.
Background of that, and then you lay the flowers on the top there with those fabrics.
Lovely.
And you've got the template to use again and again and again.
Perfect. Petal play then is this one here with your Dresden plate. This one at the back of here is the Dazzling Diamonds, which is that wonderful monochromatic with the red colour injection there for you, which is rather lovely, and a little diamond template. And then this one,
Woven Wisteria,
which is the one that Jenny's completed on the wall behind us. There you go, that's the woven wisteria. You can just see that at the behind Jenny. 336053 35.99.
And we'll talk everyone through
value.
how you do one of those and why I think they were good shortly.
Perfect, okay. Okay, moving down the counter, some Gutterman threads. Now, we always sell out of these when we have embroidery shows, and they're here in Jenny's show. Obviously, this isn't what you'd use for stitching your quilts, but if you wanted to decorate
on top, or maybe you want to add something to the plainer areas on your machine embroidery you've got for Christmas, then you could thread up with those wonderful coloured threads, which really are superb for both machine embroidery and indeed free motion.
They are beautiful. 336075. Now we've got various choices here: Candy, Classic, Coffee, Paradise, or Sunrise. Okay. Now that's your Paradise, which is the beautiful blues and greens there. Just gorgeous. There you go. That's your Paradise. This one is Sunrise.
That's
lovely.
I like those.
That's like an African sunrise,
isn't it?
Just. It's lovely. Classic over here. Then you've got Candy, which is all the pinks and the lilacs, and then Coffee. There's your coffee kit. Beautiful threads, they're incredible quality. Rayon 40 to give you that wonderful sheen. 336075. $15.99 a pack. Okay, some thatch quarters now for you.
I've been using this, and I'm using them in the classroom. And we're going to be making a mystery medallion quilt.
Okay.
I'll explain what a medallion quilt is. But my advice to the viewers is if you want to go along with today's classroom, it will pay you to get 2 packs of whatever colour you choose, at least. The price is good, the fabrics are nice, you've got 6 fat quarters. The size of the fat quarters is 18 by about 22, so you're getting a piece of fabric this big, and you've got 6 of them. And the designs that we're working with will need one of those packs at least. And then if you want to make the idea bigger, you're going to need a bit more.
Okay, so 2 of them would be great. $8.99 is your price. It's only 1 postage if you pop 2 in your basket at the same time. 335698. That's your A there, which is quite bright. Well, actually, then that's the wrong way around. That's definitely the brighter. Is A the bright? Okay, so the bright is really quite bright.
That's wonderfully
and you see
vibrant.
B is more subtle. So just a tad more subtle. In fact, they would mix and match together quite nicely.
Oh, and I think rainbows. Think bright, sunny days of summer. It's coming. We get rid of this dank winter.
Oh,
the
gosh.
sunshine!
Please. Please. 335698. Okay, bicycles.
Yes, you've got 2 prints of bicycles on there. You've got black and white bicycles. You've got dots and spots and stars. I love that because it's so classic. You can put it with anything. And of course, there's no reason why you can't have a pack of those and sling in some of the brights.
A colour injection.
Yes,
Works nice, doesn't it?
The
nice
dots
little
and
dots though. I do like monochromatic though, and of course you've done
so
something with this behind us, a little quilt section on the wall behind us. Very striking when you've got the black with the white.
Absolutely, and how.
So
really
nice.
like black and white.
And the tiny white dots on the black make it look like grey, don't they? The actual little sections you've inserted there. Very nice. 336062. $8.99 is your price on that one. Now, pretty pastels, Jenny.
These are nice. These are soft, they're delicate. You've got your pinks, your blues. It could be boys, it could be girls, it could be babies, it could be springtime, it could be the spare bedroom. It could be just, if you're worried about your colours and you just want a collection to go together, these go together.
It's pretty though.
Yeah.
321360 if you'd like that one. Okay, Clover mini iron, very
Your
handy.
favourite, you like this?
I do like
You're
this
really
because
fond
it
of it.
helps. Well, when I do applique as well, it's really nice
Because
to
it
have
gets
it beside
into
you.
those little corners
Yeah.
and really flattens it down. So you've got this, it has your two heats, it has your high and it has your low. Easily transportable for class, it's light, it doesn't take up much room, and what's more is the point gets right into those little narrow pieces. Or if you're doing some applique and you just want to get a bit of it down, or you just want to get that seam without disturbing all the rest of the fabric, that's what does it. Has a little stand it goes on, great little tool.
Wonderful. 192527. £35.99 for club members. It is also on FlexiPay, which gives you the option to spread it across a couple of months, 2 payments of £18. So you can pop any of these other items in your Flexi basket and split the whole shopping bill, which is great, isn't it? It's really good.
You get a quilt chucked in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now then, why do we need this, Jenny?
Right, many people have worry about what colour goes with what. And the wheel, the colour wheel at the back here, takes that problem out for you. So suppose you choose a colour that you like.
Yeah.
You can put the arrow to the colour that you like, the point of the arrow, and then if you look at the other parts of the arrow, it will show you what other colours will go with it.
Okay.
So if you wanted something that went, say, directly with this, straight across there, and you'd get the A on the other side. So that red would be a very good fabric or colour to go with that.
Okay.
Suppose you wanted that one, which is G, then look across following the arrow and you find the G on the other side, which is over there. That shade of red would go best with that shade of green.
Okay, perfect.
If you want to think of a three-colour colour scheme, then you can either look at those parts of the arrows or you can look at the triad effect. Or indeed, if you want 4 colours, then you can look at the trip. So it's basically put the point to the colour you want and then look at whichever of the 4 shapes you've done. Very, very useful.
So
now,
people really struggle with colour matching. This
it
is going to
takes
help.
all the steam out of it.
Okay.
The piece of coloured perspex that comes with it is a tonal value indicator. And this will sort out which is your light, which is your medium, and which is your dark. So you can lay it on the fabrics, and it basically reduces things to really light, dark, or medium. Because when you're doing a quilt, or when you're doing any design, you need light, you need your dark, and you need your your medium. Because if you've just got an overall haze, the pattern doesn't pop out at all.
Oh, okay.
See?
304780 if you'd like to order that. I think it's quite a useful tool. Rotary cutting bundle, this is a must-have.
Got to have this. Now, if you're thinking about taking up a new hobby and you're going to go do patchwork, you're going to have a cutter of some sort. This cutter, nice cutter, it's lefty, righty enabled, so that's in your right hand drawn. Put it over to me, it's in my left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand. Safety catch that goes on it. Comes with a spare blade, and the mat we've got with it. Now this is really good because all you paper crafters out there who should be doing patchwork in any case, this side of the mat you use for your paper crafting because it's symmetric. And then on the other side of the mat, we flip it over quickly, you've got feet and inches on the other side. So us patchworkers use this side, the underside, paper crafters use that.
It's handy for both.
Good stiff mat, and the cutter of course can be used for your
Look
paper
at the
crafting.
price on that as well, $22.49 at
Not bad at all.
$259.153. Normally, how much? £38. Great saving.
And this is worth having because you can just to buy that in a local shop. One of these and a spare blade. Hey, come on, you'd be daft not to have
Very
it.
useful, isn't it? Very, very
Right,
useful.
you're going to need to cut the strips and your squares.
Now these are some of the essentials, aren't
They are
they?
indeed. And if you've got one of those mats and cutters and you're thinking about wanting a new hobby, and let's face it, we've still got some dank days of January, March and February to come.
Don't talk
No,
about
I'm
it,
sorry,
Jenny.
we have. You're going to have to cut your strips straight. That will cut them straight for you. It is very useful to have a square. There are many squares around. This is a nice little square. It's ideal for cutting anything up to 6.5 inches. And of course, if you wanted to use make a bigger square, you can always lay it beside the ruler and work like that. And it's just, they're tools of the trade. I could not cope without a mat, a cutter, a ruler, and a square.
And this larger one, it is worth going for the larger one because, of course, it goes across the full length of your fabric. And it's also worth going for the larger mat because then you're not interrupted when you are
And the mat and the ruler fit together.
Yeah,
so,
they
you know,
do
the whole lot
perfectly.
together.
So definitely worth it. If you're brand new to this, you're just starting out, then purchase these last 2 sets. They're going to stand you in good stead for the future. 269020. Okay.
Right, bits. Okay, so we've got our cutter, we've got our ruler, we're going to need some sewing aid motions. Now, this is very useful for anybody working in the sewing world. In fact, anyone doing any crafting of any sort. It's a
Clever,
leather
this.
thimble.
Yeah, it's
so if
very
you're doing
clever.
soft furnishing, upholstery, anywhere where you've really got to push a needle through, or you've got to protect your fingers, that will do it. Multi-size, fits anybody.
Wonderful.
Lots and lots and lots of steel dressmaking pins, so they won't go rusty. They're always useful, nice fine pins, and believe you me, in today's show you're certainly going to need pins. Pencils. Got to have pencils, because you need pencils to mark fabric with. You've got your light, your medium and your dark pencils for marking the relevant colour of fabric, and you've got a template marking pencil, because sometimes you like to make your own templates using the plastic stuff that quilters like to use for the stiffer templates, because you can't always get the right ruler. Then you've got the disappearing ink pen. Don't write your checks with that, because it will vanish, but really useful if you want to do a design on the front of the fabric or mark something where it might show, because that will disappear. Accuracy. Now, sadly, in the patchwork world, or gladly as far as I'm concerned, you need to be accurate, and this will allow you to draw a line 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of your fabric, so that you can sew an accurate seam, because sadly, if you don't take the right amount of the right shapes, they won't fit together.
Okay.
Invisible thread. Now, it's a real pain when you're perhaps doing some applique work and you're going across different colours. Constantly changing the thread so it doesn't show is a right so-and-so. This, being invisible, will blend in with all the colours. You use it on the top of the work, not on the bottom bobbin at the same time, and that you can use it on the machine. Hand sewing is a little bit tricky because it tends to whip round. It's great for machine sewing. And then basting needles. Now, the Americans call tacking basting. But these are great for interlining your curtains with. They're great for tacking up your quilts, or wherever you happen to want a long, thin, gold-eyed needle. Easy enough to thread, nice big eye, great needles. Good little collection of bits.
It is a very good collection, and look at the price there as well, £12.99, and that's £11.69 to club members. Definitely worth getting hold of. Normally £20, 334109. Okay, now then, this is your latest DVD.
Yes, and the reason why this is here is one of the designs that I'm using on today's classroom is actually on here as well.
Okay.
But people have been given a whole load of templates at Christmas. They've opened that lovely parcel and they've got all these templates. They don't know what to do with them. A quilt that you could make out of them would be to make something called a sampler quilt. And this DVD will take you through 7 different blocks building into a small sampler quilt. That's a block quilt linked together with something called sashing. And this will give you a reason for using your Dresden plate template, your 30-degree template, your 45-degree triangle that you've got, your 60-degree triangle that you've got, diamond that you've got, and the variety of other shapes and things you might have been given.
Now, we've got this here on the wall.
It's on the wall, and it's a lesson in a box. Basically.
It is, and of course, very affordable, £15.
You can have 2 hours of me, and I don't sound croaky, and you can turn me off.
On and off, whenever you like.
And pause me, and my mouth will be open. So basically, if you came to my, say, beginner's class in patchwork, that's what you'd get.
Full
you don't
instructions.
have to come, you can watch at home, put it on your telly, put it on your computer, and it takes you through all the various different designs.
Fantastic. So you've got Dutchman's Puzzle, the 50-40 or Fight, Grandmother's Fan, the Dresden Plate, the Tumbling Blocks, the Spinning Star, and the 8-point Star, Jennie's Cheats version. All of that's coming to you on this particular DVD, so do get a hold of it, 333943. Okay, the Drunkard's Path.
Okay. This is not because I was wobbling all over Christmas, because we weren't. We were just freezing cold. This is the template I'm using for today's classroom, because what I wanted to use was to use the Drunkard's Path part of the template. Now, the template itself does 2 different designs. On this small quilt, which I know people have seen before, but hey, come on, there's lots of newbies out there. In the centre is one part of the template called the 5-point star.
Yeah.
Round the outside edge, I've used the Drunkard's Path part of the template. Now, you could use this as 2 different designs, or you could build up a quilt using the whole template by itself. So that is this particular template, and I'll be working on this section here. You can also build it into a classic design called a clamshell. That can be done with these 2 sections as well. So, good template. It does your 5-point star, and it does that classic, the good old Drunkard's Path.
Wonderful. 266319 if you'd like to get a hold of that. Full instructions are there with that too. Okay, now then, it's a square.
Yeah,
Is it a square?
Is it a square? Is it square? This is useful, extremely useful, because A, it's marked out with your seam allowance for your 1/4 of an inch all the way around the edge. So when you've got to have something dead accurate and you've got to cut it off because you weren't quite accurate enough in the first place, you can put this line through the top of the point and trim your work back to exactly 1/4 from the seam. You've also got a series of, can we take that off there? Yes. Series of angles and lines on here. This turn, I can turn it round through here. This end does your 22.5, 45 and 90 degree shape. So if you've got a slightly strange angle, you can put the template on and jiggle it to suit.
Okay.
And then this end, you've got your 30, your 60 and your 90.
Oh,
Round the very edge, it's marked out in 1/16 of an inch. And because of all the little crosses across here, you can be very certain when you put your ruler on top of the block, you can square it off accurately.
Very precise then.
So it is precision and takes the hard sums out of the way.
Wonderful. 201 402 if you'd like that one. Okay, a tall triangle. I don't think I've seen this one before.
Tall triangle. It does that. It's 3 times as high as it is wide.
Right.
And it does a variety of different designs. Now, I've used it for today's class, and we're doing something called palm branches with a difference. And I really like it as a template because it's just a little different. And when you put 2 of these together, you will get a rectangle. And when you start to play with the shapes, you'll be
Yeah, because
amazed
it's not a
at
pointed
the
triangle, isn't it?
No. Wait,
290 412, a right-handed triangle. Now we've got a 30-degree triangle.
Right, we've had this quite a lot of times. I've used it for making bunting with. You can use it for making a Dresden plate with. You can use it also for making a grandmother's fan.
Okay.
It can be used by itself or in conjunction with other templates. So you'll find this is one of the templates that's also used on the DVD, and I'm using it for the corners of the pink quilt, and I'll be showing people how we use that in a moment.
Okay, perfect. 247193.
And then finally, the petal pattern. The petal pattern is basically a pieced applique. So you stitch sections together and they will make a flower. And I think the nice thing about this template is either you can use the whole lot, or they've carefully graded it round the top here so you can have smaller parts of the petal shape and still have an arced edge.
Okay.
So it's graded round here so you can have arced edge. Even if you have a little petal, you can move the template down. So
Wonderful.
there we go, a pieced applied applique.
184993. This lady's a wealth of knowledge. Now then, for the past knowledge from the lovely Jennie's classrooms, you can go onto the website because there's 2 years worth there.
I know,
isn't there?
there's loads of them.
2 years worth of classrooms there. So do check it out. Have a little look on the Quilting Classroom and the gallery there. There's also a video library, details of the current lesson, and there's downloads there too that may be relevant to some of the workshops. Okay, now we're going to come by and just have a little look at these again, aren't we?
I want to tell you why. Now, I decided to do this. Okay? So I wanted to do the woven wisteria one. I like the colours. I'm picky about the instructions.
Okay.
And I was prepared to criticise. So having opened the instructions, I plodded my way through. And to be quite honest, they've got top marks for 99% of it. There is one little percentage I would prefer to do something else, and I will tell the viewers why. It most certainly paid to read through the instructions, and what I found was the most useful was the template that comes with it has a side A and a side B, and you have got to use side A on the side A fabrics and side B on the side B fabrics, so you've got to turn the template over. You must do what it says. What I found was useful because the template was so easy to get it the wrong way up, and if you don't cut it with the fabrics all face up and none of this folding in half and cutting 2 fabrics out at the same time, your fabrics must all be the right side up. They've got to all be in the same direction. And your A pieces will get cut one way and your B pieces will get cut with the other side of the template, with all the fabrics right side up. It does make it very clear in the instructions.
I like that you've got all the pictorial instructions.
And it works so well. Plod your way through. So marking the template A and B meant I didn't have to keep peering at side A and side B there. So that was good. What then helped was to actually mark and label all the colours. And as I cut them out, I'm afraid I was pedantic enough as I labelled them. Working through the design was extraordinarily simple. You start the design from the bottom up. And basically what happens, if you can just hang on to that before it goes floppy, and we take the pin out of that, making sure you've got the right colours And it starts off by taking two pieces and they get sewn together along there, just like that. And you're working from the bottom up. You then take the next piece, so there's the right side that goes on there, and line it up across the middle there, stitch along there, it fits. You take the next piece, line it up in the centre, stitch, it fits. And you go on working, line up in the centre,
of your panels,
stitch and slip, until it gets something a little longer. Now, I was able to get all these extra spares out of the one quilt kit.
Really?
So that's your sort of continuing. Now, the only thing that I found was very, very useful, now you can laugh now, Dawn, I labelled my 4 columns, because you make 4 columns, and I labelled them B. You can see that perfectly clearly. Are you happy that's an A?
Yes.
That's a D. And what does that say?
That's C.
No.
But you put your pin through it to look like a D.
And it looked like a D. And you have no idea of how many times I unpicked the piece of work.
Oh, bless you.
Because every time I unpicked it, I thought, well, that's a D.
But your pin was on it.
So may I recommend folks out there that when you label it, don't do it in a hurry and label it properly. Now, the only word of criticism. I liked the fact that they warned you that all the edges of your strips are on the bias.
Yes.
I like the fact that the instructions were perfectly clear. You had more than enough fabric. You could not go wrong if you read the words and you did the work. The only suggestion I would have is that when it comes to cutting out the strips that go between the pieces here, they advise you to cut the strips from the fabric down the material.
Right.
So they were actually asking you to cut the fabric strips down the fabric parallel to the selvage. There is the selvage, it's the tight taut part. They wanted you to cut their strips that way. And the snag with that is they are tight.
Okay.
You'd be much better off cutting your strips that way across it. Now, come to the quilt on the wall. On the quilt on the wall, deliberately, because I banged on about cutting strips, what is known as warp strips, which are down the fabric, is not a good idea because it buckles. Now, this quilt is slightly flatter one side than the other. Which side is slightly flatter?
That side,
right, okay. This side has warp cut strips as per their instructions, and they pull against these.
Okay.
So those two are warp cut, and here is where I cut them across the fabric. There is a join. There's a join there, there's another join there, there's another join
here. Which gave you more flexibility.
Which gives you more flexibility.
But it lies flatter.
And it lies flatter.
Ah, okay.
And when you do cut your strips, you measure them and you pin them at the ends, and you really pin it carefully. And I also found that a bit of stay stitching down the edges of strips made it work.
So the only downside is that you will have a join in them.
But you don't notice the join. But it lies flatter.
Okay.
And it behaves a lot better when I come to put my quilt down. That will behave better than that, which is tight and taut. But insofar as the instructions go and the amount of fabric,
they are fabulous kits for that price as well.
You really couldn't.
You got a great price.
$35.99.
$35.99 for
and I have
all of
got
it.
all this fabric left over. I've got all these bits left over. I've got enough to bind it with.
You have? Okay,
Marvellous.
Let me recap very quickly, and then I'm going to leave Jenny to get on with her wonderful classroom. You have got the Dazzling Diamonds quilt, which is the one with the black and the white, and also grey and red, a beautiful red colour injection. You are getting the Dresden, no, that's the, what is it, the Dresden plate? The diamond template with this one, sorry, the diamond template, and all the fabrics that you need. The one that Jenny's actually done is the wisteria. And you have the braid template in there as well. And then finally, the Petal, which is coming with the Dresden template. 336053 is your item code. That is a perfect kit to get you started with. Now then, everything is available to view on the website, the entire lineup of all of the products that Jenny's using. So you can continue to shop throughout the whole of the show. Jenny's going to be very focused now on demonstration and taking you through her classroom. I'm going to tootle off and have a little cup of tea and do some knitting, actually. But I'm going to keep my eye on what Jenny's up to. It's the mystery medallion that you're doing now, isn't it? Okay,
I don't know what it is.
No, it's a mystery.
I don't either.
It's a mystery. Okay, Jenny, so I'm going to leave you.
Thank you.
To continue. I'll see you in a short
And if I run out of voice and get really croaky,
if you've got a problem,
I shall call you back.
Just holler. Yep, okay. So remember, if you want anything now, you can go onto the website and continue to purchase, but it's focus on education right now. Thank you, Jennie.
Cheers. Right, morning, folks. We are going to be doing today the beginning of a medallion quilt. Now, in case you're wondering what is a medallion quilt, quilts can be made out of blocks stitched together with something called sashing. And on this small quilt here, we've got blocks that are the same size, stitched together with strips in between. They're often called sashing. Now, you could make a particularly small one, you could make a larger one. Here is another one. It came from the Foldy Roldy book, where, again, these are blocks stitched together. So you could have any amount of blocks, and they're stitched together with strips in between that connect the blocks, called sashing. Now, you might choose, if you wanted to have a quilt made of blocks that had no sashing between, and the blocks actually made a pattern, which is on this little quilt here. It's basically the same two different blocks put together, I know you can't see it all, and sewn together to form a pattern. So these are all quilts that come from blocks sewn together, and the more blocks you make, the bigger the quilt. But there are quilts that work from the center out, and they're called medallion quilts. This is a medallion quilt, and a medallion quilt will work from a central design, and a series of borders are added as the quilt gets bigger and bigger. And I think one of the nice things about the medallion quilt is that you can keep on adding borders, adding borders, and adding borders, and when you've got fed up with it, you stop. But the thing with a medallion quilt is you do have to do a few sums, because you've got to work out the size of the borders. There's another medallion quilt on the very front here, where I've used the combination of the black and white fabrics. I used the 8-pointed star in the middle, which is actually on the DVD. I've used fans on the corners and added a variety of other borders, working my way round, getting bigger and bigger. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, the reason why it's a mystery is because this is today's classroom. You don't know exactly what's going to happen to the quilt between now and the next classroom. Mind you, I don't either. So I decided we'd have a mystery. It will grow. Right, the designs we're going to be working on today are the three that are on the wall. This is the one that uses the tall triangle, and I'll be explaining how you create these shapes and how you make this particular block. The design in the center here is composed of 4 squares put together. And you'll see from the PDF that I've written, you can arrange these in very many different ways. Forgive me, you just have to pull out the fact I'm croaky today. Not only could we put 4 squares together, but we could also, if we preferred, use something called the petal pattern and make up that design. So we've got 2 petal patterns here. Round the outside edge, I've decided to use the good old drunkard's path. So that's all we're going to be doing. Well, I have to have a drink of water because I'm coughing and spluttering. This lurgy is dreadful. Right, okie dokie. So how are we going to do it? Let's start off in the middle. Now, the very first bit I did, oh dear, excuse me. The very first bit I did here was this little section. And this section is formed by taking a square, and I happen to have a 4.5-inch square, a smaller 3-inch square. I drew a line across the back of the 3-inch square. I placed the 3-inch square on the corner, remembering you want right sides to right sides. There. Pinned it. Now, all you're going to do, and it's very, very complicated, this, is to sew literally straight across the drawn line. So, set off from here. Make the stitches a bit longer. There we go. And you're going to sew along the drawn line. Lovely. Don't forget your thread saver. And for those who haven't seen it, it's a small scrap you sew on and sew off the top. That's it. Right, having sewn across the line there, all I'm going to do is cut off the excess fabric. So cut off the excess. There we are. That gives me a square with a triangular corner. Now, that's the start of the design. You will find that all these pieces are actually all explained in the PDF that I have written to go with the classroom. This will be attached to the quilting classroom as and when, probably as from Monday. So all your full instructions are actually also on here. So if you're not recording it, you can download that. So the center part is made by taking a square, adding the corner on. We're now going to use the tall triangle, and here is the tall triangle. The nice thing about this template is it will make any size of tall triangle right up to 12.5 inches. It's a multi-sized tool. The first ones we're going to make is going to be done by taking 4.5 inch strips. Now, very, very, very important. When you cut out any pieces using this shape for the design that I am doing today, your fabric must be folded in half. You must cut them out 2 at a time. And you need to have the black fabrics together and the white fabrics together. Do not do that. It's not the same. And the reason being is you've got to have mirror images. So fold fabrics in half when you come to cut the pieces out. I have a 4.5 inch strip. Lay the template on the top, guard off your cutter, cut up the edge of the template. Now the little tiny weeny bit at the top of the template right here. And that little bit, it isn't a knocked off section, it actually helps you with your seam allowances. So make sure you cut that little bit as well. So just turn your hand round and cut the corner off. So we actually want to have a little piece cut off the edge. You will do the same thing with the black. Remember, I have the fabric folded over. It's a 4.5 inch strip. Ruler on the top there, up the edge there, remove the excess, and don't forget your little corner. You're going to sew them together to form a rectangle. So take one of each of the 2 pieces and make sure you get the right bits that go together. Okay? Make it round the right way. There we go. Notice that they are a mirror image of each other. If you haven't got a mirror image, the design won't work. Put the 2 pieces together. Now, when you come to sew them together, you'll lay them on top with a bit sticking out either end. And you'll literally stitch 1/4 inch seam allowance right down there. And if you're not sure about your 1/4 inch, you could always draw it with one of those. When you've sewn the pieces together, press the seam open and flat. So you're going to do exactly that twice. You'll need 2 like that. So repeat the stitching. 1, 2. Right, we've now got the centre bit section made. We've got the 2 little pieces made. And the design is beginning to grow. So here we have those 2 pieces, and we have the centre section. You will need, in addition, a 1 7/8 inch square. And I think this is where these little rulers are so useful, because you can cut 1 7/8 inches. There are enough lines on here to do that. If not, the Is It square one gives you even greater accuracy, because it's got extra lines on it. So you need 1 7/8 inches. Lay the design out and check you've got it the right way round. It'd be very easy to have it completely differently. Mind you, if you wanted that, you could have that if you preferred. How I would then sew it together is I take my little black square, I'd stitch 1 strip onto one side, the black square gets stitched to the other end of the second piece. You would then lay that on the top, sew the entire thing, and open it out. So it should end up, with a little bit of luck, looking something like the one we have here. There. Right, having used a 4.5 inch strip to do that, my next move is going to take a 6 inch strip. Now, I am aware here that when we make the next pieces out, you want a 6 inch strip. That's a 6 inch cut strip. On the actual template, there is no line that says 6 inches. So what it will pay you to do is either put a little mark on it or draw a small line on it. But we're looking at between those 2 lines your fabric edge will be. Don't get confused with the line that says 6 inches. Just go with what the word says. Cut a 6 inch strip. Cut your tall triangles out of it. Lay them together and join them to make the rectangle. So there's one of those, and there's one of those. Join them together. And remember, you've got to cut the fabric out with the fabric folded double. So there we go. When you join them together, we take our middly bit. Here he is. And make sure you get them on the right way around. One goes on one side, one goes on the other side. And this time, we want a 2 3/8 square for the corner. So exactly the same piecing technique. One bit onto that side, square onto end of the strip, and attach it. Now, you may find that you might need to do a bit of trimming, because just if your seam allowances aren't 100% correct, this might not be quite the right size. It might require a little bit of trimming. So don't think you've gone totally wrong. It is, you have to be very accurate to get it absolutely bang on. But we've got the Is It Square template, so we can square it off afterwards. Once you've added the various pieces to it, it's going to look something like this. And we've got one more row to go. And now you'll want a 7.5-inch strip. And from the 7.5-inch strip, you're going to cut 2 sets of triangles, join them together to make the rectangles, and you'll want a 2 7/8-inch square. I chose to use the dotty one because I thought it looked rather nice. So once more, stitch strip onto one side, square onto other end, and attach it to the block. And with luck, when you've finished, it should end up looking something like this. And it's at this stage where there is the design. Now you might say to yourself, I've had enough now, we'll make it into a cushion. You don't have to make 4 of them, because if you want to do the actual quilt center, you've got to repeat that 3 more times. And I found this was very useful then for being able to actually square mine up, because you can see mine's gone a little squiffy, partly because the house was so blooming cold and the workshop was like an ice box and I'm coughing and spluttering. So I find this a very useful tool for putting on and making sure I can trim it off, so that from the top of my points to the edge of the template, I can actually achieve a 1/4 inch. That is important. So one of the mystery medallion quilts has its center from 4 of these blocks. So let's go back and look at it again. There are 4 of the blocks. And it's just a question of putting 4 together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, let me show you something. I really like this quilt design because look what you can do. In the PDF, it takes you through. Look at all the different ways you can actually arrange them. That's how I did it. Look, you could have that pattern. 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 Think a quilt, color, moving across. Super template. That, I think it really does work. But if that phased you, you might say, oh, I really can't possibly cope with that. What about the petal pattern? Well, the other designs that we've got feature the petal pattern. And the petal pattern template is great if perhaps you're a beginner. Okay, you're a beginner, you think you can't cope with a tall triangle. I will be honest, the tall triangle really is for those who perhaps have a little bit of experience underneath their belt. So let's just throw all this little lot on the floor, make the grand mess as per normal. The petal pattern, mine happens to be an old one when they used to do them in a color. They now come clear and see-through. If you simply cut the petal pattern out, you can very easily make a pretty motif for the center of a cushion or indeed your quilt. What I've done here is I've used the pastel pink ones, and I've used the entire petal pattern and just cut literally round the outside edge. You do have the advantage, as I explained earlier, that if you wish to cut smaller, round the very top here, it gives you the arcs that you could use if you wanted to cut smaller sections. You simply move the template down and look at the measurements on the top. But you're a beginner and you're not too certain where to start. This is an easy design to begin with because it's a pieced and applied applique. How do you do it? You would cut out the pieces. Now, I used 2 colors and cut 4 pieces out of each. I've got 2 shades of pink here. Lay the design out so you get all the pieces in the right place. It pays to make certain you stitch the right bits together. When you come to sew the petal pattern sections together, put the right sides together and you're going to be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, I tend to like to prefer to start at the center and sew down towards the end, simply because if you start at the thin end, sometimes it eats it. But I will start at the thick end and sew from the outside edge using a 1/4 inch and sew all the way down and off the bottom. Now, if you are going to do the design, consistency pays. So make certain that each of the 4 sets of petals, because you've got 8 petals and I've got 2 here, that you have the same color on the top. Otherwise, you'll find when you come to lay them out that the design doesn't quite fit. I'm also fussy about my seams, and I feel that the seams would look considerably better if the seams were pressed open and flat, because it spreads the load of the bulk and I think gives a better effect to the end. I don't always do that, but On today's example, I would press it open and flat. So if you sew them together as 4 lots of 2, you can then join 2 of the 4 lots of 2 together to make half of the design. It's going to come up looking something like this. And the nice thing about it is, as you sew it together, notice that in the middle here, there is my seam allowance. From the edge to the top of the points should be 1/4 of an inch. That's what we're after. And if you're not getting that, well, just watch it a bit. You should be getting it. The templates are very accurate, so just query your cutting out or your sewing. So 2 together to make 1/2, 2 together to make the other half, and you're going to put the 2 halves then together. And it would be wonderful if you lined up the points in the very middle. So 2 halves go together. And you're going to stitch right the way along there. Because you press the seams open and flat, very often you can see in the seams where to actually do your stitching. I think you can probably see it slightly more easily from this side. Let me get my little stick and show you. Can you see there? There's a V in the colours. Well, the base of that V is in fact the top of the points on this side of the fabric, there. So if I sew through the base of the V, I should be bang on my points. But hey, come on, a button looks absolutely brilliant. And you'll end up with something that looks like this, the 8 pieces together. If they're not wonderful just in the middle there, a button, why not? You don't have to have it perfect. You know, there's room for imperfections in this world. Now, your problem is how are you going to turn the edge under? Well, good old trick this, bit of interfacing. Put the petal pattern on top of the interfacing, right sides together. Pin it. Then sew all the way round the arched edge and just keep on sewing right the way round. Don't worry about the interfacing, because the way we're going to turn it through is when you've sewn all the way round, trim off the excess interfacing right back to the stitching line. And I also like to nick it here. So cut it off all the way round, hack it off right the way around there, and nick it there. Make a small hole in the interfacing, and then you simply turn it through the hole. As you turn it through the hole, poke the corners out, and you'll find it'll come out beautifully with these lovely arched edges. And that's where, if you've been given one of these for Christmas, very useful for getting up in there and just sort of getting the edge nice and round. And with luck, it'll end up looking something like this. If you've only got bits of interfacing, as I have with this one, you could always cheat and just use the bits. The petal then gets applied to a square. And what I did from my fabrics, my fat quarters, is I cut a square 17.5 inches. And that's where the big ruler and the big mat make life so nice and easy. So 17.5 inch square, flower on top. To make certain you get it in the middle, if you press the background square in half one way, in half the other way, and in half again in both directions, that will give you creases, and you can simply line up the edge of the petals with the crease. This stitching around the edge here could be done by hand, or it could be done on the sewing machine. The choice is yours. Now, we're now going to add our first border, and the border that I've decided to add is the good old drunkard's path. Now, drunkard's path. This is the 5-point star on the drunkard's path template, these pieces. Let me move that out the way for the moment. When you come to cut the pieces out, on the design that I used, had 8 sections cut round this in one colour and 8 sections cut round this in the other colour, except for the black and white one where I used slightly different colours because I used it on the corners as well. Excuse me. Right, how are we going to put it together? So you have your L-shaped piece and you have your arc-shaped piece. There they are. What I found was easiest to do was to fold the L-shaped piece in half and make a little nick in the middle. So I nicked the middle. Make certain it's only a little nick. And I then clipped gently, don't clip any further than 1/4 inch, all the way around. So clip edge, nick middle. On the arced section, I folded that in half and I just nicked the middle there. Right. Line up middle to middle to get your middle nicks together. Put your pins in, and you'll need at least 5 pins. We've got one there. bend the fabric round until it's lined up exactly on the end there. And I'm sorry if I'm being very croaky. I'll be better by Friday. I'm back again on Friday. I better be better by Friday. And round the other side. There we go. Lining up on the straight edge here. Pin it. All you're going to do then is flex it round so that it fits. So just bend it round and it will fit a treat. As you bend it round, you might want to put 1 or 2 more pins in. Little forest of pins really does work. So pin it all the way round. That's it. Round there. And then a few more pins round this side. Curved seams are easy. They really aren't difficult. Not if you do it this way round. It's simple. So 5, 6, 7 pins, however many pins you fancy. Underneath the sewing machine, or you could do it by hand. And literally find your seam allowance. Do not sew over pins. Take them out as and when you get there. So pull the pins out when you get there. Pull the pin out, pull the pin out. Pull the pin out. That's it, all the way around. You, of course, will be sitting straight at your sewing machine, not standing at a funny angle. That's it. Round we go. Keep going round. I used to stay stitch round the arc, and now I don't bother. I find that the nicking works just as well. Nothing like a good nick. My nick's at home. He's also suffering as well. Dear, 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 it's like a house full of old people. Okay, when you've done that, you've got your arc stitched in, and it'll pay you to give it a good press. And I pressed mine with all the seams going towards the L shape. Right. You will need to make 8 of those. Now we're ready to put the border on. Here is my middle of the quilt. I had these so they looked like this. Put them together in this formation. You don't have to, but you could. So there we are. Now, the big problem is, of course, that doesn't fit that, does it? You can say, oh, silly woman, what's she going to do? Cut this down? No, I'm going to add some strips on. So, move number 1 would be to join your sections together, making the double piece. Measure it. This will measure 12.5 inches from one end to the other. What does it really measure? It really measures 12. That's its finished measurement. And we always work with finished measurements. So it's 12 that way. It happens to measure 6.5 in that direction. So what's its finished width? Go on, 6. So this piece is 12 by 6. This piece is 17.5, you might remember, which is really 17. You take 12 from 17. The answer is 5. We need, oh dear, dear, dear. 5 has got to be divided by 2, making 2.5, okay? To that you add your seam allowances. So in order to make this piece fit along here, I take its finished size from the finished size of the middle. I divide the result in half. Remember to add the seam allowances back on. So I need pieces that are 2.5 inches finished, which will be 3 cut. They want to be 6 inches high finished, which will of course be 6.5. So I have 8 pieces, because I need 2 for each of the 4 sides. And basically what will happen is I will take my center section, I'll put a strip on one side, strip on the other side, repeat all the way around the entire thing. And this will make the border that you can see is round the small quilt we have over here. And one last little thing to do is, of course, I've got the corners. And the corners could just be nothing more complex than plain squares. And if you were going to put plain squares there, they'd be 6.5 inch squares. Why? That is 6.5 inches. 6.5 inches cut, 6 inches when finished. But I chose to use the 30-degree template. And let's get the 30-degree template out. So you could just have perfectly plain squares like that and push in the corners. But if you wanted to, you could use the 30-degree template, which is this one. And I cut my shapes out from a 6-inch piece of fabric and literally laid the template on and cut out wedges. To make the shape, take the center, fold it in half, and you stitch up one side only. This makes the top of the shape. Cut the very corner off there. I would finger press the seam open and flat or use the clover mini iron, because this is one of the few tools that you really can get into the crease without damaging the rest of it. Turn the piece right side out, and that again is where your Dresden pointer and creaser will poke the end out, and you will end up with a shape that looks something like this. What I did from the design we've got on the wall is I had 3 of these. I had 2 in blue and 1 in yellow. And all that simply happens, to some of these things out the way then you can see, is I joined 2 blues and a yellow together, and amazingly it made a piece like that, which fantastically fits exactly on the corner of my 6.5-inch square. Now, this template could also be used for the Dresden plate, and you'll find that on the DVD. And to make the design that I have on the wall there, I took my 3 of those, laid them onto a backing square, stitched it round the edge there, as you can see, and the design gets formed by putting 1 of these in each of the 4 corners. 1 would go there, 1 would go there, 1 would go down here, etc., etc. And that is the beginning of dealing with our medallion quilt. You will find there are words on the PDF, and if you wanted to cop out, and think, oh, I couldn't cope with any of that, cop out. And you could do the one I've got here, which is just the petal pattern border, 6.5-inch squares for the corner, and this strip is nothing more complicated than cutting 2 strips of fabric. I used a 2-inch cut and a 5-inch cut, joined them together, made sure they were all the same length as that, stitched it on, and you've now got the beginning of our mystery medallion quilt. Come back, our Dawn, to our glorious mess we've got on the floor.
I can see, Jenny.
Yeah.
You've been having fun. That's beautiful.
Yes, isn't it?
Yeah, really beautiful.
So it'll work. It'll work remarkably well. Now, of course, if people don't want to do the medallion quilt because they think, oh, I can't cope with it, I know we've got a PDF. That's where those quilt kits will be ideal.
Of course, if you joined us at the beginning of the show, we did show you the fabulous quilt sets. Now, the Wisteria's one sold out.
What?
Gone. This one that Jenny has created in studio has gone. Obviously, they've seen your sample and loved it, Jenny.
Well,
we do have the 2 other options.
I still think that that's a goodie. You see, that works exactly the same way. Now, here, look, we can show you. On the DVD, which will help with the piecing, is the Dresden plate. And all that quilt is this, but done in those colours. You've got the fabrics all to hand. You've got your backing fabric. They give you the template. There's your template. Look.
Beautiful.
You make it up exactly as I've just showed everybody as you make up these pieces. Okay. Only they're shorter at the bottom there.